What would you do if you could travel to your past or future? It's difficult to imagine, right? Well, time travel does exist, and these are the 10 pieces of evidence that will blow your mind. The enigmatic case of Thomas Johnson. It all began in July 1912 with a 10-year-old boy named Thomas Johnson. Thomas lived with his parents on a farm in New York City that came with an extra feature, a lake that would soon bring years of grief to the family. Young Thomas loved playing around the farm with his friends. But one day, while playing near the lake, his father warned him and his friends never to go near it. This warning wasn't because Thomas's father disliked the lake, but rather because he found it peculiar. He believed that some animals had gone to the lake and never returned. But a child will always be a child, and Thomas completely ignored his father's warnings, visiting the lake again with his friends, this time fueled by curiosity. According to his friends, a whirlpool suddenly formed while Thomas was standing close to the lake. Intrigued, Thomas moved even closer to get a better look at what was happening. To the shock of the other children, the whirlpool completely swallowed Thomas. They immediately ran to call Thomas's father, but it was too late. By the time he arrived at the lake, his son had already disappeared. Thomas's father informed the police about the incident, and the search for Thomas began. Despite weeks of searching, there was no trace of him. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months and months into years, Thomas's father couldn't stop blaming himself and grieving over his son's disappearance. He would often walk by the mysterious lake that had taken his son just to remember him. Almost 60 years later, when almost everyone had forgotten about Thomas, something unexpected happened in July 1970. Thomas's father, then 91 years old, was walking near the lake when he witnessed a swirling motion in the water, reminiscent of the day Thomas disappeared. From a distance, he watched in astonishment as the lake returned his son to him. Thomas's father immediately recognized his son, but Thomas himself looked at his father with surprise. A lot had changed about him, especially his age. The craziest part of the story is that Thomas came back as a 15-year-old boy, which meant that wherever he had gone, only 5 years had passed, while for his father, it had been 58. When the authorities learned about the situation, they took Thomas's fingerprints to confirm his identity and were shocked to discover that it was the same boy who had disappeared in 1912. Thomas himself was unable to reveal what had happened to him during those missing years, whether he had been abducted by a supernatural force or had traveled through time. Nevertheless, this story serves as evidence that time travel exists.